All right, let's talk about a movie called White Noise. All right, so you got this guy named Jack. He's married to this chick named Baba, and he's got about 3 or 4 kids. Now, all these kids believe in algorithms and conspiracy theories and whatnot. They literally talk about the entire movie. So we start off with this guy named Murray. He's a teacher. And keep in mind, this is back in 1986. So he loves teaching about like car crash violence and things of that nature. I'm like, the fuck? Murray's actually played by Don Cheadle, so it's like, okay, there we go. Murray is basically Jack's best friend when it comes to, school system and whatnot and all that. Jack in his school, he teaches about the misrepresentation of freaking Adolf Hitler. Don't even get me started on that. So the thing is, he's got this big presentation coming up, but the thing is, he talks all this shit about Hitler, but he doesn't know how to speak German. He's getting private lessons from this one dude on how to speak German and whatnot. Now, Baba, his loving wife, is very happy and chipper and things of that nature. She's like overjoyed about everything. Jack, on the other hand, talks about death because that's his thing, apparently. So Jack's daughter, Denise, ends up finding this pill bottle. It's called Dylar. And she talks to Jack about it, and we're like, why is mom taking this pill? Like, first off, we're trying to figure out what Dylar is, right? Apparently, Denise has done the research on it, and there's no such thing. It doesn't involve anywhere. Like, it's not even under government-related issues. It's just like, what the fuck is this type of medicine? And what exactly does it do? So Jack is sitting at the table with a bunch of teachers, right? One of the teachers just happens to be Andre 3000. I'm like, the fuck? He doesn't really play a major role in the movie, but he's there. And they basically sit around and talk about conspiracy theories and things of that nature and stuff that they're talking about during their classes. He tries to talk to this one lady named Miss Skanowski, and he wants her to figure out what's going on with this Dylar shit. But she needs a sample to at least, test it out and figure out what it does. So Murray eventually needs Jack's help to come into this class. He's going to talk to the class about Elvis and stuff like that while he comes in and talks about Hitler. So the class is set. Murray goes through this whole diatribe about Hitler. Meanwhile, interfering, Jack goes through this whole diatribe about Hitler, and then he basically just takes over the whole thing. While this is going on, this random flammable truck is like driving or whatever like that and ends up losing control and runs into a fucking train. The train gets completely knocked off course. The truck ends up exploding, and all this smoke is going up in the air. We find out the kids are looking out the window with binoculars or whatever like that. This smoke is like on the other side of town. They're questioning if it will blow back in their direction, but Jack is not. He's just like, all right, whatever, it's not going to do nothing. And Baba's consistent with what Jack's talking about. Meanwhile, the kids are frightened, they're scared. They're like, hey, man, don't we need to evacuate the area or something like that, trying to figure out what's going on? Now, apparently the train had these toxic chemicals on it, and his son thinks it was carrying something like Nisicone D or something like that. Now, on the radio, they said it could possibly give some people the shakes, but then they claimed it was something else. They said ingested could possibly cause nausea, vomit, or whatever like that. So throughout the day, they changed the name of it again. They called it the toxic event or whatever. So the crazy thing is they're all sitting together eating their food at night. And then a police car drives by, a sheriff car comes by, is like, hey, evacuate the premises at all costs immediately. So eventually they finally leave, but because they're the last to leave, they get to the highway and the highway's flooded with people trying to leave this town and whatnot. So when they're leaving inside the car, Baba ends up slipping one of the Dylar pills in her mouth. We're like, the fuck? But she ain't saying nothing to nobody. Now it gets to a point where they finally get to a gas station because they were running out of gas. He goes to a spot so he can pay for gas, but nobody's inside the thing, so he just fills up the gas tank and dips out. But the crazy thing in the background while he's doing that, you can see the sky kind of changing colors. So they get on the road, and apparently they're supposed to be going to this place called Camp Daffodil. But as they're on the road, they see the sky changing colors again. It's turning like black and purple and shit. The clouds going crazy. We're like, what the fuck is going on? So then they finally get to Camp Daffodil, and I guess that's where people are supposed to be quarantined at. So throughout all this, Murray ends up meeting up with Jack again. And Jack finds out he's been kind of contaminated with the disease or whatever like that. Because it's supposed to quote unquote contaminate you within like 10 seconds, right? Apparently when he was out getting gas, he was out for like 2.5 minutes. So then Murray ends up giving him this small gun in case he wants to take death by the hands personally or whatever the situation is. Basically, he just gives him a gun. Then they wake up the next morning, they got to evacuate again. And everybody's going crazy trying to get to their cars, just dipping the fuck out. But the daughter's like, oh, I forgot my bunny. And then he sees the bunny, he's going back to get the bunny. But then this random dude in the pink robe picks up the bunny. Now, we don't see his face, but he ends up giving him back the bunny. Now, I gotta explain something to you. Jack has been having nightmares about somebody randomly, but you never see this person's face. And I think this somehow ties in with his nightmares, too, with this random person in a pink robe giving him a bunny. So he's basically one of these guys that thinks he keeps seeing death around the corner, especially now being contaminated with this so-called, toxic event. So now they're supposed to follow the main road, but then he sees this truck or whatever, right? These people that got guns and they're going across a different way. So Jack's plan is to follow these niggas because he thinks they have a better idea or better plan to get to a certain spot away from the toxic clouds or whatnot. He follows these niggas. They end up swerving into a goddamn river thinking it's a waterfall or something like that. Then they get stuck on this one part, apparently enough to pull the car out of the water or whatever like that, and they sped off, and now they're back on land again. They end up getting right into a line. After they cross a bunch of cornfields and grass or whatever like that, they end up getting to a street where everybody's pretty much in line, and he just goes in a line. I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? So then they get to another spot. They never really said where it's at, and basically they quarantine everybody there. Now, they heard on the news that apparently government officials and helicopters or whatever like that are going to try to transport something into these clouds. Don't ask me how the fuck they're supposed to do that without getting contaminated, right? So after all this, apparently 9 days go by. They're able to go back into the towns because the threat's over, I guess. But before that, some guy was giving his speech. After he gives his motivational speech, he turns around and sees Jack, and he's like, I've seen you before. Now, apparently the most toxic part of this disease is some people can possibly think that they're having deja vu. Not sure if it's relevant or falls into the category, but bottom line is that's what they told us it could possibly happen. So anyway, 9 days later goes, and then like the threat's over, the cloud is brushed past or whatever like that, and now they've gone back into the town. And apparently it feels like people got new leashes on life. The supermarket that they go to is more vibrant and viable, whatever like that. But the thing is, Baba hasn't been her happy, joyful self. As a matter of fact, she always spends time in front of the window just crying. So we're like, what's the deal with Baba? Is it come with this Dylar pill? Like, what the fuck is going on? So now Jack has gone to like doctors and stuff like that, but he's never really brought up anything about him imminently dying or whatever like that within like 15 or 17 years or something like that. He's talking like the happiest doctor in the world. Like, it's crazy. So then we get to the situation we find out that Baba is still taking the Dylar pills. So Jack is able to sneak one out of the bottle, and he goes to his lab's assistant, Mr. Shevsky, to talk about it. But she's like, yeah, they've drilled holes in these type of pills or whatever like that, but she still doesn't know exactly what they do. So it comes down to this point, like Jack finally confronts Baba about this shit once and for all. And then she actually tells him, yeah, these pills are not on the market for a reason, because she got these pills from a guy, let's call him Mr. Gray. They don't know his real name, they just call him Mr. Gray. Apparently these pills are supposed to make people feel like they weren't afraid of death. It was supposed to be a new enhanced drug or whatever like that. Her and like 3 other assistants passed to be able to take this test. And that's why they're not actually on the pharmacy market, because these are not like law-tested pills. And on top of that, they don't even know the effects of them. Kind of found out the effects of the pills are making her forget things. And the worst part about it is whatever it was supposed to do, it wasn't even working. But the way she was able to get more pills, she basically had to end up sleeping with Mr. Gray. And she's been doing this on and off for about several months. So he's like, man, who is this guy? She's like, I'm not going to tell you his real name because you might go out and try to kill him. Now, you're probably thinking to yourselves, he still has that gun that Murray gave him, right? Yeah. So basically, when Baba ends up going to sleep, Jack looks for the bottle of pills or whatever like that. He can't find the bottle. Then he goes in Denise's room to start looking for it. Denise said she flushed him down the garbage disposal like a few days ago. So he goes to the garage. He's digging through the trash trying to find these pills or whatever like that. Then he finds this newspaper clipping. Clipping says, are you afraid of death? Such and such, and then it gives a phone number. He calls the phone number. He ends up speaking to Mr. Gray. He tells him to meet him at the Roadway Hotel, room 8. Now, the thing is, when Baba was telling her story about meeting up with Mr. Gray, she would wear this ski mask. Now, her daughter was looking for the ski mask before this toxic extinction level event, which is why Denise couldn't find that shit. Now, Baba knew on a level that she was having sex with Mr. Gray, but the thing is, she would always forget. And this has already been shown because she forgets things throughout the entire movie. So basically, when he was digging through the trash to try to find this stuff, he went in this other box and he pulled out the gun that he had in there because he was hiding it in there the whole time. So yeah, he's got it on him. So now he's making this grand speech as everybody's there and he's able to speak German. Everybody enjoys the speech. He ends up talking to Baba. He tells her like, hey, keep your ski mask with you. So you think to yourself, what the fuck does that mean? Because apparently Baba needed a car for something. So he goes up to Murray, asks can he use his car. He's like, yeah, sure, why not? So basically, Jack is on a mission to go to the Roadway Hotel. So you're thinking to yourself, he's probably planning on killing this nigga. So he goes to the hotel room, he meets up with Mr. Gray, which when he's talking, you feel like he's the guy that he's been seeing throughout the whole movie, throughout his dreams, the person carrying a bunny with the pink rope. You think that's just him, just off the jump, but we're not really sure, honestly. She turns around, he starts talking about his ideologies and whatever other stuff like that, and it turns out Mr. Gray has been taking his own medicine too. There's a bunch of pills of Dylar laying around or whatever like that, so Jack is pretending like he wants to buy some from him. Now, apparently the side effect of this drug is like, if you mention anything about like certain items, like say if you say spreading bullets, then that person will think bullets are firing and they're going to duck down or whatever like that. They react to certain words and whatnot. So he gets Mr. Gray to react to certain words. He's like falling around, bumbling around, all this other stuff, and he ends up going into the bathroom. This is when Jack pulls out the gun and bangs 2 off in Dr. Gray. So you thinking Mr. Gray's done deal dead as shit, right? So he cleans off the gun, wipes off the fingerprints or whatever like that, puts the gun in his hand, but not realizing while he's doing that, Mr. Gray is still alive. He must have just shot him in the shoulder or some shit like that. Then all of a sudden, Baba comes out of nowhere. We're like, what the fuck is she doing here? And I'm like, he must have gave her a clue about the goddamn ski mask shit, right? So apparently it was another bullet in the gun. Mr. Gray fires off, it ricochets off of Jack, and it hits Baba's leg. I'm like, the fuck? But the thing is, Mr. Gray's in pretty bad shape. So Baba and Jack basically dragged Mr. Gray out of the thing so they could be like, I don't know, maybe take him to the hospital or whatever like that. But I'm like, didn't you just try to kill him? So at that point, he thought they was just going to try to dump his body or something like that, right? But then Mr. Gray wakes up and he's like, what happened? So apparently taking advantage of the fact that his memory's fucked up because he's been taking all this Dylar, they make it seem like, hey, he's the one that shot. Basically, Mr. Gray believes that because Baba was the one that actually told him that. So they put him in the car and they get him over to this emergency room or emergency hospital, whatever like that. This hospital is filled with nothing but nuns. Then as they're getting put in hospital beds, right? Baba looks at this picture on the wall and it's talking about heaven and stuff like that. It's like, do you believe in angels? And then the nun is like, the fuck? We don't believe in that shit. We believe in what people want us to believe in, all this other stuff, right? And they're like, aren't you supposed to tell us what to believe in? This is that, Thursday. They're like, look, man, I believe in the truth. I believe what's going on, da da da. And she gives this heartfelt speech so that Jack and Baba can actually, have things to believe in now. They believe in angels. They believe in, they don't believe in death as much as they wanted to at first. Bottom line is all of a sudden they're all like a happy family now. Like, okay. And they find out that Mr. Gray will live. He's suffering, but he'll live. And then they all end up eventually going to the supermarket and shopping again. And that's the end of the movie. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck did I just live through? I think there's a more psychological moral to this story, but for the life of me, it's so baffling. First, they were talking about Hitler's stuff. Then they were talking about Elvis. Then you had this toxic extinction level event caused by a goddamn trucker hitting a fucking train. Then apparently that blew over in like 9 days. And then all of a sudden, we get back to the Dylar situation, which I felt was pretty much the majority of what was supposed to be happening in this movie. But so many other sidetrack things hit. Bottom line, if you can make sense of it, let me know. You already know what time it is. White House on Netflix. Check it out. I mean, White Noise, my bad. And the crazy thing is, when I first thought White Noise, I think to myself, like, all right, Ouija boards, ghosts. Well, technically, he was dreaming about demons in his death, so I guess that's something, but I didn't think it would take this level. Anyway, check out White Noise on Netflix. Check it out.